listeners. Welcome to another episode of Romance Unraveled. This is one of your co hosts, Jacob Bozen. And for the month of August, we have a new co host with me. His name is Chris Cheung, and I met him at Pickleball in DC. We played queer pickleball together, and it took us about a year to start talking to each other, which
Yeah.
is funny. But yeah, we are, I guess, good friends now. So, Chris, let's have you introduce yourself.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Jacob, and thanks for having me on here. Yeah. So I grew up in like the DC metro area, and I lived here most of my life. Went to school here pretty much through college and grad school and all that. And yeah, a lot of my friends and family are here, and yeah, so I'm pretty familiar with the area. Like Jacob was saying, once I kind of started picking up pickleball, I started hanging out in DC a little bit more. Yeah, I, yeah, I certainly knew of you. I think for like a year, you were always kind of there, but yeah, we didn't start talking until maybe a few months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, and here we are. So
Okay, well, let's get into the story today. So, Chris will be telling us one of his stories today.
okay, so a little more background on me. So I grew up in a very like conservative, very traditional home, kind of setting. Went to church every weekend, very involved. My whole family was involved. In fact, I have a fairly extensive, like extended family. They all kind of lived in the area, so a lot of family stuff, a
What was
lot
the
of church stuff.
denomination?
Funnily enough, I think they were technically non-denominational,
Okay.
but I always kind of grew up thinking we were kind of like evangelical-ish, maybe. I'm not really even sure what that necessarily means, but that was my impression growing up. But I think officially they're non-denominational,
Okay.
a Christian nonetheless. Let's see. Yeah, so yeah, again, just very traditional. So kind of being queer, being gay, which is not a thing. It was a lot of being gay is a sin, and God punishes gay people, that kind of thing. Um, so not really like an option. Not something we
Yeah.
talked about. Certainly not in a positive light if, at all. So kind of I felt like my life was kind of like set out for me. Getting married, having kids, things like that. That was always kind of the plan.
To a
And
girl.
yeah, and so I didn't really have any other options.
Okay.
And I mean, the thought didn't even ever like come to me that way. Like I was that much like that indoctrinated into kind of that culture. So yeah, a lot of my childhood, like going to high school, college, was just really just trying to fit in, dating girls, kind of doing straight guy things, which is I don't really even know what that means, but maybe just like getting into sports, pretending to be interested in things that I really wasn't into.
Oh, we could totally take out the straights in the sports. That's hands down. But
um,
keep going.
okay. But yeah, so I really didn't start exploring kind of, a gay identity, the kind of the gay world, kind of until my late 20s. That was about the time I finished grad school. So before that, I just didn't really have time with, a lot of either being in church or being in school. Um, yeah, so when I first started out, it was very innocent, very safe, very tame. This was before I think a lot of the apps were like a thing.
How many
Um,
years ago was this?
ooh, I mean, over 10 years at this point. So
Okay.
um,
And how old were you? So, how old were you at the time?
I want to say like 27-ish,
Okay.
maybe.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I mean, I certainly knew about like Grinder, but did not get on that. So, but I think I just kind of like Googled and kind of looked things up, and then I remember looking, I found some like forums or like just some discussions on some kind of like gay website, um, and
One that doesn't exist anymore, probably.
I have not checked in a long time. I really don't even know.
What was the name of it?
It was a real jock. Um,
I have no idea. Okay.
yeah,
It doesn't matter.
I've heard it's old. I mean, I just Googled it and it's just what came up.
Okay.
Um, but anyways, I just read through some of the forums, some of the discussions, and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. I looked through some of like the profiles on there, through what I could that was limited. So at that point, I was just like, after a while, I was just like, you know what, let me just make my own profile. And so I did. Again, kind of like very minimal. But then, start talking to some people, talk to some guys, and then you kind of get a little bit more involved in it. And it was nice, to finally get like some attention, make some connections, and kind of just really be honest about this part of me, and not have to hide it or pretend, that I was someone else.
So at this time, you were kind of more comfortable with yourself because it seems like when you're telling the story about how you grew up and how it was more re a religious background,
Mhm.
which was the same for me.
Mhm.
Um, at this point, like, did your family know that you were?
No,
No, okay. So
no.
this was all hidden. Okay.
Yes, yeah, still very much in the closet at the time. Did
Okay.
not know any gay people like in person really. This was just all online.
Okay.
Um, but on this website, just talking to random guys, kind of I think really anywhere in the world. But I met this guy. We'll call him Sam. So Sam was a few years younger than me. He was kind of like finishing up college. And we started talking like we were just pretty much started talking. Started just talking as friends. I think there was probably some kind of like mutual attraction. That's usually why I think some of these guys, like some of us, started talking to each other. But I knew that he was talking to another guy fairly seriously that he met also on this website. We'll call him Henry. So
So he told you about this Henry. So
mhm,
okay.
mhm.
So you
Yeah,
knew. So my question is, if you knew he was talking seriously to Henry, why did you keep talking to him?
just as friends, like we were just very casual. And honestly, when we were first starting to talk, like it was very like sporadic. Like it wasn't anything like really extensive. It was just kind of like a hey here and there, some random things maybe. And it was on this website solely. So really, it was just I don't know that he was even really on my radar. Um, unless I got like a message, like a really brief message back from him. So
Okay.
really, just with the intention of just like, oh, like he's a nice guy. It's just nice to have some gay friends.
Okay.
And I was also kind of talking to somebody else at the same time too. So I really had like no intentions at all for anything more than kind of what it was. So yeah, we were just kind of talking randomly, just occasionally for a few months. And then kind of like out of nowhere, I think I don't know if he was. I think because he was talking to this guy, he was talking to Henry very seriously. I think he was trying to get off of that site. So, but I think he wanted to stay friends. So he was like, "Hey, like, can we be Facebook friends?" Back when Facebook was more of a thing. So I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we became Facebook friends, and I think that's when we started to talk a little more. I guess maybe because he's on there more. I don't know, but we did start to communicate a little bit more on Facebook, or we probably started texting and stuff eventually at that point. But yeah, again, didn't think much of it. But he was, a very thoughtful person. He would, like to send cards and like handwritten things. Like it was just really nice. Again, was not thinking very much about it. Probably was some a little bit of flirting there, like very innocent, depending on what you would consider innocent, I guess.
He sent you cards. So, like love letters
No,
or
like birthday cards.
okay, like in the mail?
Yeah, yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah. He was like very like into that. I think it was like, and to me, I was just like, oh, this is like really thoughtful. Like no one ever does this. So,
So
um,
what was an example of like the flirting that he did to you other than the cards?
I mean, to be honest, it's been so long, I can't remember exactly, but I think it was probably along the lines of something more like physical, like, oh, I like your physique or something like that.
While
And
he's all with this Henry person.
yes.
Okay.
But yeah, again, because I knew about that, like I just didn't think very much of it. So I was just kind of just new to everything, just kind of enjoying what it was, and just not taking anything too seriously. Not thinking too much about anything. Um, so again, so Sam was finishing up school, and at that point, so he lived kind of like out west, and then Henry lived on the east coast. So I think they were fairly serious. So when he was finishing up school, Sam went to visit Henry, and it seemed like they wanted to move forward, move in together, kind of progress with their relationship. I don't know if they got engaged, or I mean, certainly that was on their mind. I think they got like rings, or I don't think they were like promise rings. I remember there were rings. Um,
So Sam at this point is keeping you updated line by line, essentially,
mhm,
his
mhm.
relations with Henry.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Like I knew everything that was going on,
Okay.
essentially. Yeah, we talked, I think, pretty much every day. And then, when all his plans and stuff, he would talk through with me, and it's like, okay, cool. So when he went down, and I don't know if they officially moved in, but like he moved down there. And because they live on the East Coast, they are, well, I think they're just easier to access like cruises and stuff. So I know Henry really liked to do cruises, so they went on a cruise, and apparently it didn't go well. From what I remember, I think he told me that they like met some girls, like this group of girls on the cruise, and they like had dinner together or something, and for whatever reason, Henry did not acknowledge Sam as his like significant other or fiance or whatever they were at the time. And that like made Sam very, very upset. He's very serious, and he really wanted, to be married and all this. So um, after that cruise trip, yeah, I think they were trying. Basically, they kind of talked it out, trying to, and I don't really remember exactly what came about their conversation or like why Henry decided not to acknowledge their relationship in front of other people. But for whatever reason, it didn't work out, and Sam decided to move out. Like he's like, this is not going to work. He was like
Well,
very.
at this point, so was this when they were engaged, apparently, was this before I'm assuming it was after the legalization of gay marriage, or was this kind of,
This was what was that 2000? Was it 2011 or 2013?
so this would have been way before gay marriage was legalized then. So I can see, I mean, sometimes I feel like the person who, I guess, carries a little bit of shame or worry with them would be more hesitant to say that, oh, this is their fiance or whatever they may have been at the time with
Mm-hmm.
a group of people.
Yeah, and that's very possible. I had no interaction with Henry at all. Everything I heard was from Sam's and his point
Yeah.
of view, so that very well could be true. I didn't know too much of his history other than whatever Sam told me.
Yeah, okay.
So, but yeah, so Sam decided like this was not going to work. He moved back, to his home out west. Um, but then at some point, I think he started, he finished college. He was looking for jobs and stuff, and he got an interview for a job in Virginia. There's some kind of like internship that kind of like led into something full time, I think. So he came out to do the interview, and since he was in the area, we decided to meet up, before he went back home. So I
And
remember
this
it
is
was
the first time that you've met him in person.
yes, yeah. So we may have like FaceTimed or something, before that, so we kind of knew what each other looked like. But yes, this was certainly the first time in person. It was really quick. He got a hotel for the night. I went by. We had dinner. We hung out really briefly. And it was good. We connected like we did online. It wasn't really anything different. So yeah, it went well. Um, and I also was not, the guy I was talking to when I mentioned previously, we were no longer talking at that anymore at that point. So um, yeah, so he went home and then found out he got the job, and then he moved back out here again. I mean, over a course of maybe a few months. So since he lived in Virginia, obviously he's a lot closer now. So we have more opportunities to see each other in person and hang out. So he wasn't in like Northern Virginia, like kind of like where you were, Jacob. He was more like almost honestly closer to like West Virginia. So he was like kind of out there.
Okay.
So he's still like an hour and a half away. So I was like, I can do that. So I would go and we would hang out. I remember I helped him move in. We got furniture. We went to IKEA. I remember we went to some like yard sales, kind of look for some like random pieces of furniture. And yeah, and then he would come out and see me. We went and saw a show in DC. We hung out in Baltimore. I think we went to an aquarium. We went to the aquarium there. So yeah, so I think during this time, we started to be able to see each other more in person, started to hang out more, and the relationship obviously started to progress more. We started to be a little bit more physical, a little more intimate together. And I knew like his story because obviously he had been telling me everything.
Yeah.
So as far as I understood it, they were not together anymore. However, apparently they were still talking, and kind of like I guess trying to figure things out. I guess they had been fairly committed before, so I guess they didn't want to just like drop it and like be done. So they were still talking,
Did he
and
still
I
have
didn't
the
really.
rings? Do you know?
I think he did, but it was kind of like hidden away. Like, I mean, I certainly didn't see it. I think he just kind of kept it somewhere. I think I don't know if the other, I don't know if Henry still had his or not, but I think Sam still had his. It just, he obviously wasn't wearing it. And I don't know if he just kept it somewhere. I don't know. Um, but yeah, but I could kind of tell because over time as we kind of hung out more, our interactions were a little inconsistent. Sometimes he'd be like really into me, and then sometimes he'd be like very distant. So in a lot of ways, I felt like I was kind of second to Henry. Like I was, in case like that didn't work, then I was here, that kind of thing. And I understand like he was still trying to figure out what he wanted, and still healing from everything that happened with Henry, and at the same time maybe just kind of exploring the possibility of like what could happen with me with our relationship. So, but in my mind, I was still thinking like we're just, we're good, we're friends, we have a good connection, we're just hanging out. I really, again, just did not think, I didn't think I really thought too much about it. I was just kind of enjoying it for what it was. And I really think that was what it was. Like in the beginning, when we were kind of started first hanging out, like we were really just kind of just enjoying being together, enjoying our time together. But obviously, over time, him being very like just like very traditional at heart. I think wanting to get married and build a home, have a family, that kind of thing. I think he was thinking about those things. So he would talk about things like marriage and having a home together, things kind of casually, kind of just putting it out there. So I didn't ever really think too much about that. But kind of looking back now, like it was, I think, very obvious that we were in very different places with kind of what we wanted. For me, I was still very new to everything with guys. I was still trying to figure out kind of what I was doing with my life. I had just finished, grad school maybe a couple years before this. Um, Figuring out what I wanted to do, where I wanted to live, what I wanted to do for work. I was, really just wanting to kind of explore life. I wanted to travel. I had been sheltered for so long, in kind of my childhood and most of my youth. I really wanted to kind of see what was out there.
Yeah.
Um, he was very much like, I want to settle down. I want to have a home. I want to be married, that kind of thing. And he wanted to be with someone who obviously wants the same thing. He was very sure about that. So I don't know if I don't know that I understood it. Maybe I didn't see it. I don't know. Or maybe it just wasn't communicated well. I mean, this was a while ago, so I don't know exactly, but it could be a combination of all those things. So all this took place over maybe like a year and a half, maybe 2 years.
Of going back and forth between him wanting to get married and have a home versus you kind of just experiencing the entire gay world for the first time.
Yeah, and I mean, I think from the moment we first met on that website, I think it was probably about 2 years. But at some point, I think he realized, like, no, this just wasn't going to happen. Like, this wasn't going to work out with me. So I think it was kind of like one more chance. Like he took kind of like one last thing. Whenever we were at dinner one time, and I don't even remember what we were talking about. We were just kind of talking about whatever, and then I don't know if it was out of nowhere or not, but to me, it felt like it was out of nowhere. He basically said, like, if I had to choose between you and Henry, I would choose you. And
What? That is so stupid to me. Like, why would he even indicate to you that you have to compete with somebody or that there's somebody else out there that you're competing with? And he gives you like he knows that you know the story.
mhm,
So that doesn't make sense to me. Like, I think it's fine if you say to people, "Hey, like I'm seeing others, whatever." But to give you the full-blown details and then to say to you, to your face at dinner, "Hey, like I would choose you over Henry." Like, what the hell is that?
I honestly don't know. I don't even remember what we were talking about. But to me, it kind of felt like it was out of nowhere, and I don't know. I didn't know how to respond. I don't even know if I did respond, to be honest. But that may have, I think, helped him make his decision.
Yeah.
So very soon after that, I think he decided again, he had been talking to him they've been talking, and at some point, I think they decided they were going to try again. So
So he says he chooses you. And then they start talking more in depth, and he says, "Oh, we're gonna go back to Henry."
Yes, and I think that's just because I don't know if it was from that incident when he, told me like, that he would choose me, and me not responding to that kind of gave him his answer.
So you didn't
Um,
say anything.
I honestly don't remember. I don't remember giving an answer. Um, yeah, I honestly don't remember. If I gave an answer, it was not much of one. I don't think.
Okay.
Um, and I don't know if it was that or just maybe over time. I think him maybe just realizing, I mean, again, he was talking about marriage and all this stuff and moving in with somebody and building a home. And I don't know that I really responded to that. I was like, oh, like that's something I want to. And, is that something you want to do together? Like, I certainly never engaged in the conversation that way. So it
Mhm.
could have been all that leading up to this moment. And then and he just kind of really put it out there like, hey, I want this with you. And then me not knowing how to respond. I think he probably got that, like, I was not in that place. And then, but then, I guess, him talking to Henry and I'm assuming they again talked about these things and assuming they both still wanted these things, that may have kind of pushed him more towards him.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay.
Yeah. So again, this is just from my perspective and kind of what I'm piecing together, a decade later. Um,
Yeah.
so, but to me, like it made sense. Like they both kind of wanted the same thing. They're both very serious, very committed, very traditional, very, they held like, relationships and like marriage and like really high regard. And it was something like very important to them. And I wasn't able to give this to him at that time. So they decided they wanted to try it again. So yeah, so again he moved back down um to be with Henry. And there were like a lot of changes going on at that time. I think Sam was starting his own business, and so he was doing a lot of things with that. Obviously moving back down. So oh, and I think once they moved down, I think they went on another cruise. But this one I think went much better. And this one I know for sure they bought rings. Like this was like when they got their engagement rings.
Okay.
They were like on an island, and then they were looking at rings, I think, and someone was like, "Why don't you just buy them if you're gonna commit it?" So they bought rings. Like so, these were like their second rings. I'm pretty sure these were like their actual engagement rings. So yeah, obviously during this time, a lot of stuff going on for him. He started to kind of distance himself from me. And I asked him about it. I was like, why are you like kind of pulling away? And he was just basically saying like, I'm committed to Henry now. Like I need to, things I would come to you with before, like I'm going to him with now. So, we weren't talking as much as we did. If we did, it wasn't anything as extensive or as in depth as it had been, in the past. So essentially I didn't really know what was going on in his life anymore. But I got it. Like, I was like, you're engaged now, you're prioritizing Henry in your life. Like it was fine. And then I was kind of talking to somebody else at the time too. So certainly I was sad that he was leaving the area and, I wasn't going to be able to hang out with him anymore. But I was also like happy for him. I was like, like this is what you want and, you should go for it. So, yeah, it was kind of, there were kind of some weird things that happened. Like, I remember Henry actually friended me on Facebook. And I thought this was good. I was like, oh, like, he wants to be friends. Like he knows I'm important to Sam. So I was like, maybe this is progress. Maybe we can be friends. And then I swear within like a day or two, like he unfriended me. And okay. I was like, when I asked him, I was like, well, what was that about? And he was like, I don't know. He's like, he was probably just checking out who you were. And I was like, okay, that's weird, but okay. And so I didn't mention this before, but like I knew some of Henry's history a little bit. So before Sam, he was in like a very serious relationship. I don't know if he was married or not, but he was in a very serious relationship and he was cheated on.
Okay.
So because of that, I think he was very insecure and just a little untrusting, maybe a little bit controlling because of that. And I'm like, okay, I get it. So basically, at some point, I know Henry wanted Sam basically to cut out all the guys in his life. Anyone he was close to, anyone he had ever like hooked up with or anything, he was like, I want you to cut them all out of your life. Which he did. Sam did, except for me. Sam like refused to cut me out of his life. To the point where I think he lied about our relationship. So, and I didn't really know this until kind of later on. He kind of lied to Henry about the extent of our relationship. I remember they got into a fight about the whole thing. Like it was very messy. Um, but they worked it out. They whatever it was, they worked it out. They talked it out. They got married. They got married pretty quickly. It was like a really small wedding. Just happened really fast. But it was what they wanted, and they went for it. There was no reason to wait. And I was moving on with other guys. I was moving on with my life. And again, I was still in touch with Sam. I didn't actually realize it until, for this podcast, I had to look back on our Facebook messages, and I was like, oh, we were talking, um, just not like as in depth, but still somewhat regular. It was a lot of, I think, adjusting to kind of like the new rhythm of our relationship, because of, all the changes going on. But then, so about 3 years later, I remember he called me kind of like out of nowhere. Just wanted to talk. So I was like, okay, like I haven't talked to him in a while. That's cool. But then he kind of started asking kind of some weird questions, like kind of like about the timeline of our relationship.
Henry did.
No, Sam.
Okay.
So he called me, just wanted to, talk, and just started asking me kind of like some kind of weird questions about like very specific things about our relationship. And I was like, I don't know, it's been like a few years. Like I don't know these details, but I was like, okay, whatever. And then maybe
I
like
would have been like, well, didn't you experience it too? Like, why are you asking me? Like, what
yeah,
does it matter?
yeah. So I was just kind of like I don't know. So, but then about a week later, he messaged me on Facebook, kind of asking the same things again, asking about like the timeline about like a relationship, the last time we were intimate, and I was like, this is kind of just like weird. Like, why are you doing this? So he said something along the lines of like, was it weird, for you like when we were intimate, like knowing that that Henry and I were together? And I was like, what? I was like, no. I was like, what? I was really confused. I was like, I don't know where this is coming from, but as far as I understood, like you guys were not together. Like you had that whole incident and you guys were not together. Like
Yeah.
maybe you were talking things out, but like you were not officially together as far as I understood, because like he was like a little more distant. He was very good at like creating boundaries and space when they were kind of like on. Um, so like to me that was very obvious. I was like, okay, I'm assuming this would not have happened if you guys were together. But apparently, so Henry was like very suspicious, like this entire time of me. Which makes sense why he like Facebook friended me and all this stuff. So he did, so I think, Sam was telling me like we're just friends, we're just really good friends, and he just never believed that. And even like after they got married and after like all these years, he was still like not believing that. Um, so I think for the sake of their marriage, Sam decided to just completely like come clean with him and be completely honest. And that's why I think he came to me like asking for all these details, which I mean I didn't remember either. So,
Yeah.
but I tried. I was like, okay, like this is gonna help with your marriage, like whatever. So I talked some of it out, like whatever I could remember. Um, and it turned into kind of like reminiscing. And it was nice. Like, oh, like remember when we did this? We went, and, we did this together. And then he asked me, like, oh, like, do you have any pictures of us together? And I remember I said, and I can confirm this because I saw it on our Facebook message. I said, I think he wanted me to send him some pictures of us together. And I said, are you going to show these to Henry? And he said, no, they are just for me. So I said, okay.
Why? Dude, you are married. Who cares?
So yeah, so obviously like, he had these pictures before, and then like when he was decided to be committed to Henry, he like deleted everything. He deleted all our pictures, all our like our chat history, everything. He deleted it. Which I'm like, okay, fine. Like I get you need to do that because of your situation. But yeah, so I was like, okay, I gotta send him a few pictures. Nothing like I mean, there was nothing like you know rated X or anything like that. Like it was just like us hanging out. We get dinner together, like whatever. It was just like very innocent thing. Like you really would think like it was just two friends hanging out.
Yeah.
Um, and then after we were kind of wrapping up the conversation, and I asked him like, are you guys going to break up? Like, are you guys getting divorced like over this? And he said, I don't know. And I'm like kind of worried for them. Like I don't know what's gonna happen, but I'm like, okay, this is not any of my business. Like I answered your questions. You guys deal with it. So we finished the conversation. I went to bed. because and I went to bed earlier because I had to go to work the next day. The next morning, I wake up and I get a text from an unknown number. Turns out this was Henry. I guess he had gotten my number from Sam. And in his text, he basically said, like, this is what Sam told me. Like, he kind of recounted our relationship timeline. Um, and then he said, Sam showed me all your pictures. And he says, I need to know, like, if this is all true. Because he said basically, like, if this is all true, then Sam was cheating on me this entire time.
Oh wow.
And I'm just like, oh my God. This is like 6 in the morning. And I see I'm seeing all this. And I'm like, I do not know. Like I cannot do this. Like I need to get to work. Like I cannot do
Yeah. And it has
so.
nothing to do with you. It's like it's
Yeah,
crazy to me because sure he might have been your friend,
yeah.
but that's a them problem at this point. And yeah, it puts you in the middle of it.
Right. So like I'm freaking out and I'm like, what, like, because I'm thinking of all these things, like I have to be careful. Like what if what I say, like, causes them to like break up or what they get divorced because of me? I'm just like, I don't want any part of this. So like, I'm getting ready for work, driving to work. It's just on my mind the entire time. And then I was like, I cannot go. No, so I get to work and I'm like, I cannot go through my day with this like on my mind. So once I get to work, I text him back, try to be as calm as possible in texting him back. But basically I said like, yes, like as far as like remember, like this is true. And I'm not trying to start anything. I said, and I apologized to him. I said, I don't want you guys to break up. And I didn't know you guys were officially together. That was not my impression. At the time I thought you guys had broken up. So I just basically said, if I did anything to hurt you or your guys' relationship, like I'm sorry for that. I don't want to put a strain on that. Like I was just like, keep me out of this. I was like, I don't want
Yeah.
to. And he was surprisingly nice. He was kind of just like, he said he wasn't mad at me, and he said like, you're not the one that hurt me. So that was very nice of him to say that. Um, and I told him like, I know Sam really loves you, and that he really wants to be with you, and just well, I hope you guys can work this out. Um, and he said something along the lines of, yeah, like marriage is very sacred, and we'll work on it, and something like that. I don't know. So I was like, okay, that seems like it's fine. So right after that, I text Sam, and I just said, hey, like, just let me know you're okay. Like, text me back, call me back, whatever. Just let me know you're okay. No response. So I'm like, okay, they're still probably working through things. So like a week later, I was just followed up, hey, just text them again, just hey, just checking in, make sure you guys are okay. Again, no response. And that was the last contact I ever had with him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is like so much stress on you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For what, too? Like he ended up, I mean, you weren't ready at the time anyways, but it seems like he chose him over you, like
Right.
obviously.
Right. And I knew that and I accepted that. But like I think I was just more like I had moved on from all this. And then it just kind of like out of nowhere just
More like
came
a
out.
mediator position. It was like you were like you were the person who was going to make or break their marriage.
I know that's a lot of stress on me. I
Yeah.
was like, and I didn't have any time to like think about that. It was just like, a quick text at 6 a.m. in the morning and just, so he actually texted me the night before. I was just asleep and I didn't get it until 6 a.m. I had to decide within like an hour and a half, like how am I going to respond to this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's going to happen to them based on how I respond? So, um,
Well, I'm gonna have to say that he owes you big time because you could have taken this in a completely different route, and you could have destroyed that easily,
mm,
and you could have saved it easily. I mean, you don't really probably know where they stand now, hopefully in a good spot, but yeah, like he owes you a lot, and to not respond to you really ever, that is kind of garbage, but I can also see why he didn't respond to you because
mhm.
there was a point of contention between the two and their marriage.
Right. So there was a lot, obviously going on between them that I was not aware of. So I think like, and that's fine. Like I had kind of moved on from it, and I'm like, I understand why you need to do what you need to do. I think it just still to this day bothers me a little bit. Like the last contact I had was with his husband and not him.
Right.
Um, I can feel like I just don't have like closure on the situation because no, I mean, just like a quick text, just like, hey, like we're fine, or we're working through it, and just like he doesn't want me talking to you anymore. Like that's all I needed. Like I needed
Yeah.
closure, and I
Yeah.
just never got that. Um,
Well, that's too bad. Well, thanks for the story.
yeah,
For our listeners, as always, make sure you subscribe and save. We're streaming anywhere you can get your podcasts. You can follow us on social media. It's Romance Unraveled on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And if you want to submit a story to me to come on the podcast, just message me on Instagram or Facebook, and I will. We'll get you scheduled and make sure you rate us 5 stars on whatever streaming platform you use. Until next time.